Krakow was occupied by the Nazis on September 6, 1939. A few days later, all of the synagogues and religious institutions which belonged to the Jews were closed by the Nazis, but the Jews continued living both in the city center and here in Kazimierz. At the outbreak of the Second World War, there were about 68,000 Jews living both in Krakow and its different districts. In the early 1941, the Nazi government announced that all of the Jews living in the city had to move to the Krakow Ghetto. The neighborhood of Podgórze, and the word Podgórze means at the base of the hill, was chosen by the Nazis for the ghetto area. Why? Well, because it was rather easy to isolate the Jews here. On one side, the district bordered on the Wisla River, which is right here, and on the other side, it bordered on the hill. So in March 1941, around 15,000 of Krakow Jews were walking down this bridge from the city center and from Kazimierz to the ghetto area. The borders of the ghetto were sealed on March 21st, 1941. And we're now heading to the ghetto area. The main entrance into the Jewish ghetto was right here. Its facade was decorated with a sign which said Jewish Town, and it was located right next to this beautiful building, which during the ghetto time became occupied by the Judenrat, or the Jewish councils. The square in front of the ghetto was excluded from the ghetto area, and this beautiful church was accessible for the Poles throughout the existence of the ghetto. Some streets were essential for the Jews to survive in the ghetto. The most important institutions were located on the streets, including the Jewish Self-Employment Office, Jewish hospitals, mikvahs, and synagogues. Yes, you heard me right. Although the Nazis closed the synagogues immediately after the occupation of Krakow, they did allow the Jews to have 3 prayer houses in the ghetto. These days, some of the buildings which were occupied by the Jewish institutions are marked with these ghetto memory trail signs, but not all. One of the 3 Jewish prayer houses was here. This 2-story grey house, which these days consists of the privately owned apartments, during the time of the ghetto was occupied by the Jewish police. In late 1942, the Nazis divided the ghetto into the Sector A for those who had employment permits, the so-called blue chips, and the Sector B for those ones who didn't. And the border went along the street, and the 2 sectors were separated from each other with the barbed wire. The only pharmacy which existed in the ghetto, it was called by the Jews the Foreign Embassy. Why? We're gonna talk about that more during our tour. This was the main square of the ghetto. From here, the Jews were sent to the work assignments, both in the city center and in the factories which were located outside the ghetto. From here they were sent to the Plaszow concentration camps and to other extermination camps. Mass shootings were here, and during the last months of the existence of the ghetto, the Jews lined up here at the entrance to the Jewish Self-Employment Office to try and get the so-called blue chips, the work permits, because that was the life-saving ticket. Another entrance into the ghetto was right here. And this two-story house in front of you lasted through the Second World War and till our days. The ghetto was fenced off. At first they had the barbed wire, but rather quickly they built the wall. And nowadays there are two remaining pieces of the ghetto wall. One is more known among the tourists and marked with the heritage sign, and the other one is hidden in the courtyard of a building further down this road, and we're gonna take you there. We'll be delighted to take you on this very interesting yet quite sobering in-person tour from Kazimierz to the ghetto. Contact us at yourjewishheritageguide.com to arrange.